First of all, before we get to know about all the plot and the story of Christmas Carol, let's get to know about the author's life. The author's name Charles Dickens. He was born in 7 February 1812, and he was an English writer and social critic. And he created some of the world's best-known fictional characters and is regarded by many as the greatest novelist of the Victorian era. And his work enjoyed unprecedented popularity during his lifetime and by 20th century, critics and scholars had recognized him as a literary genius. His novel and short story are widely read today. Dickens also wrote Christmas Carol in 1843, and at that time there was no tradition for reading ghost stories at Christmas. Hence, the numerous spirits that Scrooge encountered and the theme of wealth and injustice are clear comments on inequality of wealth distribution in Victorian England. And the theme of this story is include greed, forgiveness, tricky, and concept of time, as well as the theme of generosity and compassion. And a Christmas Carol can be read as a moral tale because it's showing what can happen to a man who is consistently self-centered and unkind. And this story also remains, especially is popular and continues to inspire adaptation in every artistic genre. So let's continue with the plot of this story. Let's go!
Alright, the novella begins on Christmas Eve. Scrooge is visited by a series of ghosts, starting with his old business partner, Jacob Marley. The three spirits, which follow the ghosts of Christmas past, Christmas present, and Christmas yet to come, show Scrooge how his mean behavior has affected those around him. At the end of the story, he is relieved to discover that there is still time for him to change, and we see him transform into a generous and kind-hearted human being. Alright, let's watch to the story.
Characters: Ebenezer Scrooge, an old man who is well known for his miserly ways. Bob Cratchit, Scrooge's clerk, a kind, mild, and very poor man with a large family. Jacob Marley, in the living world, Ebenezer Scrooge's equally greedy partner. Marley died 7 years before the narrative opens. The Ghost of Christmas Past, the Ghost of Christmas Present, the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come. Fred, Scrooge's nephew, a genial man who loves Christmas. He invites Scrooge to his Christmas party each and every year.
The story opens on Christmas Eve. Scrooge rejects a Christmas dinner invitation and well wishes from his kind and cheerful nephew Fred. Scrooge also dismisses charity workers seeking alms for the poor and tells his humble clerk, Bob Cratchit, that he must work on Christmas Day. Later that evening, Scrooge is visited by the ghost of Jacob Marley, his former business partner who has been dead for 7 years. Marley has been wandering since his death as punishment for his stinginess in life and neglect for the well-being of others. Now, Mary warns Scrooge to save himself from the same fate. Before disappearing, Marley tells Scrooge he will be visited by 3 spirits. Later, Scrooge falls asleep only to awaken disoriented. The ghost of Christmas Past, a small figure appears to him, showing him scenes from Scrooge's yacht. Scrooge sees himself as a lonely and innocent child who is ignored by other school children. He is saddened to see both the kindness of his younger sister Fan, who would eventually die after giving birth to his nephew Fred, and the cruelty of his father. Scrooge then sees himself as a young man in the prime of his life. His girlfriend, Bill, is breaking off their romance after realizing that Scrooge pursues only money. Seeing this vision of himself, Scrooge is overwhelmed with emotion and begs the ghost to take him back to the prison.
Scrooge falls asleep, but wake up again. The ghost of Christmas present appears as a giant with a lifespan of only one day. He transforms Scrooge's room into a decorative feast, then show him several grand scenes of the Christmas joy and charity, including the Cratchit household. The ghost informs Scrooge that Cratchit, Clips, and good-hearted son Tiny Tim will die young. He also shows Scrooge the merry party at the Fred house. Finally, a ragged boy and girl crawl out from the ghost's robe. The ghost calls them ignorance and then wants Scrooge to beware of ignorance. Suddenly, the silent black-clad ghost of the Christmas yet to come replaces the ghost of Christmas present. He shows Scrooge several scenes of people who casually and jointly discuss someone's death. No one seems saddened by the passing of this mysterious man. Next, the ghost shows Scrooge several people drying up some processions they have planned from the man who has died recently. Scrooge is suddenly at the planted bed of the corpse. He cannot bring himself to raise the veil of dead man and see the own face. Instead, Scrooge asks the ghost to show him someone who feels grief to the man's death. The ghost transports Scrooge to the house of the young couple. They are rejoicing since their misplaced critical and has died, releasing them from the run of debt.
เขาตายไปแล้ว
ตายเหรอ Then in the Cratchit homes, Bob mourns for Tiny Tim, who has recently died as well. Finally, to Scrooge's horror, he discovers it is own death that has made so many people happy. Rather than sad, he desperately hoped that their scenes of the future can be changed. He wrote to live by the lessons of the past, present and future. The ghost shrinks and collapses into the bedpost. Finally, Scrooge wakes up in his bedroom and joyfully repeats his vow. He runs around his house, and then outside with crash bell ring. He learns that it's no Christmas day. He is friendly to everyone he sees. He sends a large prize turkey to the Cratchit house, gives a sizable donation to the charity worker he previously insulted, and then has a wonderful time at the Fred party. The next day, he gives Bob Cratchit a raise. He continues his curly way after Christmas, befriending everyone and become a second father to Tiny Tim, who doesn't die after all Scrooge change forever.
continue to keep the spirit of Christmas alive in his.
The part is literacy techniques. The tale is written as a novella. This is a short piece of fiction, longer than a short story but shorter than a novel. The writer used literacy techniques as a metaphor. For example, Christmas is the only time when people think of people below them, as if they really were fellow passengers to the grave and not other race of creatures. This sentence, the writer used a metaphor highlighting how Fred believed that people should see each other as equals. And the final part is criticisms of the work. From the scene where the charity meet the Scrooge, when the charity collector asks Scrooge, "What the poor do without donations?" Scrooge sputters, "I don't know. It's none of my business." In that moment, Scrooge chooses to ignore the plight of the poor or offer a solution. He chooses to be ignorant. From these scenes, we see that the wealthy members of our society tend to ignore the mystery of those around them. This part is important quotation in the Christmas carols. The first sentence is, "Beware ignorance, for he is doomed." This sentence, the writer implied that society is doomed unless we educate our children out of poverty. And the next sentence is, "His wealth is of no use to him. He don't do any good with it." This sentence, Dickens implying that the wealthy should do more with their means to help the less well off.